A Docker apology. Who is the GOAT ruckman? Plus, we take you behind the scenes of one of footy's most fiery off-field feuds. I'm Nat Edwards, and this is AFL Daily. And joining me on this Wednesday afternoon, Riley Beveridge and Damian Barrett. Welcome to you, gents.
Welcome to you too, Nat.
Hello, Natalie.
Hello, Riley. Very formal indeed. Let's get into the big news of the day that's happened in the last couple of hours or so, and that is that Fremantle forward Patrick Voss has issued a public apology, Damo, to Melbourne's Harrison Petty for his crybaby torn. As we know, he was fined $1,500 by the Match Review Office. Your thoughts on actually issuing a public apology?
Yeah, all you can do is what he's done, I think, Nat. He obviously made a fool of himself. He knew that in the time frame of doing it. And then we learnt today, and we'll hear it in a moment, there was a context to it that he wasn't aware of with the backstory to the crying of Harrison Petty. People can make of that what they want, but you can't ask for anything more than what he's done, I think. He's clearly addressed his own coach, his own teammates, and now we've learnt that he's also addressed it with Harrison Petty. And ultimately, he's now gone public with it. You cannot ask anything more than that. I think we all move on from it now. The AFL itself has given him the $1,000 early fine for the action, and I think it's neatly wrapped up now. We move on. We've all learnt, and hopefully no one else does it for the remainder of the year.
Well, let's take a listen to Harrison Petty on Triple M.
From the bottom of my heart, I honestly had no context whatsoever around the whole situation. As soon as I got some context around it at the end of the game, I reached out to Harry and just let him know there was nothing sinister behind it at all. And he was really good about it. On Sunday, I rang JL first thing. It just obviously didn't sit too well with me after a win when everyone's talking about you and something you did on the footy field instead of what was a great team performance. So yeah, on we go. I've accepted the $1,000 fine and learnt from my mistake.
He's learnt from his mistakes, so now we can all move on from this issue and get back to footy. And one of the big games this weekend will happen on Saturday, Damo, at Marvel Stadium, and it's actually the off-field rivalry and the feud that's been brewing behind the scenes that is really the focus of the St Kilda-Brisbane match, isn't it?
Yeah, well, everyone's had a say, and we'll recap some of those statements in a few moments' time, because it does make, I feel, for great and even captivating listening in the the relatively boring off-season as we can have between seasons in the AFL world. But what is left now is for the players now to put a line on it to a point, and that's the exciting part, isn't it? Because I think St Kilda's a massive chance in the game itself, Nat. I mean, they do get a Brisbane Lions team rolls without Harris Andrews, who's still serving a suspension. As we talk right now, we don't know whether Hugh McCluggage is going to be available. And if he is, I think he's going to be underdone because he's got a soft tissue injury, and I don't think he'll be anywhere near 100% if he does play. So I reckon they're a sneaky chance. I'm not going to be courageous enough to pick the Saints, but I do think, just getting back to the match itself, Nat, that it's going to be game on, and it'll be a nice early Saturday game. It's a 12:30 start. It could have had a billing in the evening hours, in the nighttime hours. I think it's worthy of that. But it's a great backdrop, and I'm glad now the players can go and sort out who's going to lead 1-0. I
agree with you in the sense that I think Brisbane's gettable at this time of year. In the first month of the season, they tend to focus more on the last month than the first month. As you mentioned, they've got Hugh McCluggage, who's still under that fitness cloud. They've got Zach Bailey and Darcy Gardner returning from suspension, so you wonder if there's a bit of rust there. Logan Morris is returning from injury as well. So I think they're gettable, but the political backdrop to it is fascinating. And I think the interesting part of it as well is it's not just involved these teams, because I know you speak to a lot of people at football clubs, and so do I, Damo, that every other club has had their opinion on the matters that St Kilda and Brisbane have spoken about publicly. They've had their opinion sometimes privately, but they've certainly had a view on it. And I know a lot of clubs are looking at this weekend's game, having their interest piqued because they've followed this saga for the best part of the last few months. So it's going to be a really interesting battle, and I can't wait to see it unfold.
And to simplify a probably greater debate, Nat, and one that does have a level of nuance and context, but it's basically the father-son academies, the father-son rule and the academy rules versus the recruitment campaign of the Saints, and that's just simplifying it. But I feel too, Rolls, to your point with other clubs getting involved and at least observing what's going on here, I feel St Kilda is getting a bit more traction as the months wear on with this. I think some years ago when Andrew Bassett first sort of went quite public and quite volcanically, in certain forums, certainly behind the closed doors of AFL Commission meetings with presidents, I think they were initially thinking, oh, what's this about? I feel now he's got some form of support behind him because of the lopsided element now. The academies and the father-son access, particularly Brisbane, there's a couple of Ashcrofts, there's a Jasper Fletcher. Harris Andrews is an academy player, got Dan Annabelle in. They've won premierships with these players. The Saints have had to do it very differently, and they're bullish about that, and they make no apologies for it. But yeah, we get this clash. Let's just go back. Just one more tune out before we do listen to some of the past comments, Chris Fagan and Ross Lyon included. The two presidents, or one's president, one's chair of Andrew Wellington, they've got involved in it too. And
I love this.
They have they've basically got an arrangement to agree to disagree, but it didn't stop them going at it quite heavily. They're both very successful businessmen. They have these robust conversations regularly. But some of the words exchanged and some of the correspondence exchanged, it was quite extreme, including a suggestion from Andrew Bassett to tell Andrew Wellington to maybe tell Chris Fagan to pull his head in, or words to that effect. That wasn't relayed to Fagan, and nor it should have been in my eyes either. But it just goes to show there is a genuine emotion and passion behind the whole cause.
I love it. Let's take a listen to some of the history behind it. And it all started with Chris Fagan speaking to our very own Michael Whiting.
I'm hoping that those numbers that we saw last year, Voss and Kilda, don't become the reality. I saw that as a bit of a danger for the game. The best players in the competition deserve to be paid the most money, and that's not the case at the moment.
I could be wrong, but in my 13 years of senior coach, I don't think I've ever commented on a specific opposition player in a derogatory sense. When Brisbane's list could be in decline, they're going to get the captain of West Coast and the number one player from Essendon, free agent. And then arguably have the number one rated player in the competition, Annabelle, go at what price? I don't know, what was it, pick 40 or something?
It's very, very spicy indeed. And I love the fact that Ross Lyon also referred to the Suns as the AFL's Nepo baby, threw that one in there. And you know what? Initially, I wasn't on board with St Kilda.
Yeah.
But after opening round, I should say, not round one, and watching the Gold Coast Suns, I have warmed to St Kilda's point of view, because the Gold Coast Suns, let's face it, they're a scary proposition. And the access to the academies and all of that, I totally understand it for those markets initially, but I think during COVID, when we played so much football in the state of Queensland, the participation there is strong. Grassroots level is quite strong now, stronger than it ever was. I feel like maybe it is time to kind of reel some of this back. Riley, you work in this space more than most. What's your view?
I can see both sides of it to a certain extent. The thing I would say with Brisbane and Gold Coast, though, is Brisbane started from the very bottom in 2016 when they drafted Cam Rayner with the number one pick. When they made finals for the first time, which I think was either 2019 or 2020.
19.
Yeah, so Will Ashcroft wasn't there, Levi Ashcroft wasn't there, Annabelle wasn't there, Jasper Fletcher wasn't there. They built this list and rebuilt pretty traditionally through the draft. Yeah. Gold Coast will say the same thing, that the players that they've got through their academy in the last 2 or 3 years haven't helped them gain relevance. They've been added on top of that. So I think Brisbane are looking at it going, yes, we've got these players in over the last couple of years, but we put in the hard yards. Yeah. We put in 5 or 6 years worth of work through the draft to get to this point, and then we've just been fortunate in the way that it's happened. And no one was kicking up a fuss when Collingwood made the grand final in 2018 and then won a flag in 2023 with Darcy Moore, the Dacos brothers, Isaac Quainer, who were all academy or father-son prospects. So I can understand that aspect of it as well. It's interesting that you said a lot of clubs are gaining support for St Kilda. I think the thing that, and anyone at home could work this out, is who's on what side of the battle lines. Because you look at Port Adelaide and Carlton, and they're very much on the side of the Northern Academy clubs at the moment, because they know they've got, in Port Adelaide's case, Dougie Cochran this year, in Carlton's case, Cody Walker. Essendon's on that camp as well, because they've got Kobe Buick coming through in 2027. It's so easy to see who is on what side of the ledger and why they are on that side of the ledger. If St Kilda had have got access to the exact same amount of players as Brisbane has over the last 4 or 5 years, I can guarantee that Andrew Bassett wouldn't have been making these claims.
No, exactly.
It's just to suit one club's means, and every club takes a side from there.
And ultimately, Nat, so just to maybe wrap up this conversation, it's almost taking us back to the 80s, where equalisation was first used as a word and as a practice in the game, and it helped the competition for a long time. And now we've got a return almost to the old zoning system, which was the initial reason for equalisation through these academies. I know they're different operations and different parts of the competition, but this is why the big circle has almost been completed now. And the weight now given to the growth of the game in the northern markets through these academies is the bugbear of the clubs struggling. And that's not going to go away quickly.
We'll bring the popcorn on Saturday, I say. It's going to be very juicy indeed. Cannot wait to see what the fallout is from the St Kilda Brisbane game on Saturday at Marvel Stadium. A quick break. On the other side of this, we talk about a giant of the game.
Hey, it's Ollie Dempsey from the Geelong Cats, and you're listening to AFL Daily. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, on Sunday, quite literally, a giant of the game, and I'm talking about the one and only Ruck King in Max Gawn, plays game 250. The Melbourne fans will be out there in force. They're playing Carlton, and this was his new coach, Stephen King, speaking about him today.
Like post Dean Cox, you think about the next, like Max's have to be right up there, not only in this area, but all time. And the game's probably moved away from big men dominating, but he's just found a way with his ability to, intercept behind the footy, his ruck craft. He's been a nightmare to coach against for a long time, and to see the way he's attacked his off-season now and the way he started the season, that's probably why he's the best.
Why is the best? He's mentioned Dean Cox there, and Stephen King would know, obviously, being a tall himself. But before we get into the debate around who is the ruck goat, just a word or two, or maybe a sentence or two, Damo, on Max Gawn, and I guess the adversity that he suffered early doors in his career. It took him a while to come on, and he's just grown in front of our very eyes into this magnificent leader, a premiership captain of this football club.
It's shaped him, didn't it? The adversity, the injuries that he had, Rolls, with the knees, and even the unknown about did he belong at the AFL level. He's certainly, his mannerisms and even lifestyle with the smoking, which was sort of, well, it was on the radio station. I was on that and still am with Triple M. It was celebrated that he got caught smoking, and that he used to hide the smokes in his beard. It was all part of the persona, but he then became, as you say, one of the all-time greats, if not the all-time great, and it's so deserved, isn't it? And even now, as he's wading through and the unknown of these new rule changes, he spoke openly, didn't he, about going into the first game of the season. Have I still got it? Can I run around with these younger guys? And then we saw him produce one of his epic performances against the guy who's getting the big money in Tom de Koning, and was able to, prove to himself and the footy world he's still got another season in him at the very least, and it's probably going to be a ninth All-Australian season.
And adding another layer to that, Riley, too, is we love great characters in this game. And he is a jovial character who likes to have a little bit of fun, crack a joke or two, and he is just one of the great blokes going around in the AFL.
He certainly is. He's unique in his own regard, and he's warmed to leadership, I think, in a way that probably you wouldn't have expected. And it factors into what you said before, Damo, in the sense that I don't think anyone would have expected him to be a football club's captain in his early days when he was hiding smokes in his beard and stuff like that. So the way he's matured across his career, if he does become a 9-time All-Australian this year, there's a chance he becomes the first player ever to have nine All-Australian places. And given he's doing this in a position where generally only one gets picked in the side, it's not like a midfielder where there might be 12 mids selected in the team. When you factor in they get put on the wing, they get put on the half-forward flank, they get put on the bench. He's playing in a position where only one gets picked every year. So if he breaks that record and becomes the first ever player to have 9 All-Australian places at the end of the year, it would just be such a remarkable statistic. I think that's why it is hard to go past him. When you look at that, you look at the fact that he captained Melbourne to their first flag in however long it was. All of those things together, and how he's respected across the game, and the way he's been able to adapt to a whole series of rule changes when the influence of rucks across the competition has slowly started to fade over the last couple of years. I think that's why he is the greatest we've seen in that position.
Well, Dean Cox revolutionised the role, didn't he, Damo? And then if you go back further, I guess, a different era of football, because John Nichols, the Carlton great, was 189 centimetres, and you're comparing that to a Gawn or a Cox who are over 200 centimetres. Polly Farmer, 191 centimetres as well. I mean, he's the starting ruckman in the AFL's Team of the Century, which was released in the mid-90s.
There are still people who played with and saw Polly who will say, forget this conversation, he's the man.
Yep.
I didn't have the luxury of seeing him, but I did not have the luxury of, as a young person, seeing Simon Madden.
Yes.
And I put him still as the
Right
main
up
man.
there. Okay.
I know he played 370, I think it was 78 games, but he kicked 577 goals. I know it was a different era, and I know that football was played differently there, and the ruckman used to rest at full forward as it was for him, but he was good enough to play at full forward. He regularly kicked high 40 goals in a season, and I have him as number one, as much as I love Maxi. Gary Dempsey's another one who sometimes gets, I think, unfortunately, out of these conversations. The Brownlow medal winner.
From who you've seen, which is probably more Dean Cox or Max Gawn.
Well, Dean Cox was the first ruck that, as a child, I thought this guy's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think and the injuries didn't help him.
No.
But I think the fact that the impact Nick Natanui had throughout the 2010s, I think if you're doing it based on years, you'd say yes, Cox probably of the 2000s, Nick Nat of the 2010s, and then Maxi towards the end of it and throughout the 2020s. But certainly, I think over the last 15 to 20 years in modern football history, I think Max Gawn's the best.
I can't split those two, Dean Cox and Max Gawn, for mine. Slightly different players. So, yeah, I sit on the fence for that one. Just quickly touching on Thursday night football, Geelong and Adelaide. Now, if the Crows are to win this game, Riley, they are going to have to break a 23-year hoodoo because they have not won at the Cattery since 2003. And there are some familiar faces in the rooms or on the ground during that win. We see Mark Bickley, Andy McLeod, Tyson Edwards. The 3 votes actually went to a guy called Ian Perry, who, Damo, I have no idea.
Left footed now. He was a handy key forward or a handy goal kicker, in his time. An awkward looking left foot kick, but a good player.
Okay, I mean, so this is a massive hoodoo and a massive challenge for the Adelaide Crows, given they've got a couple of outs.
Yeah, Jordan Dawson won't play. Tex is being rested. They're bringing in Big Finbar Maley, the Moose, for his club debut. There's some hope that Josh Worrell will get up. Geelong have some injury concerns of their own, most notably their captain, Patrick Dangerfield. But I just think the Cats are so hard to beat down there. Yeah. It's going to be a massive litmus test, though, for Adelaide, given they've passed one. They beat Collingwood at the MCG, which is a game which I don't think many expected them to win. Then they failed the next week at home to the Doggies, which they would have been disappointed with. I think for both sides, this is going to be a real good tester to see exactly where they're at this stage of the year.
I was disappointed in the Crows, what they did against Bulldogs. I know that people are going to say the Bulldogs are effectively premiership or second premiership favourites. I understand all that. But ultimately, to me, they didn't prove to themselves, let alone the wider footy world, Nat, that they have rectified the problems that were exposed badly in the finals last year. That being an inability to control the game early and to let the opponent, and the Western Bulldogs specifically last weekend, to control how that game was played for a large chunk of it until they then got on a roll late and actually hit the lead, but then couldn't hold it. So I didn't like it, despite being 7 points up with not much time left and then losing, but I didn't like the fact that they allowed the Bulldogs to control proceedings.
So that's the Crows side of the equation. And as you alluded to, Riley, Patrick Dangerfield, Geelong skipper, is out of this game. The hope is that it's only this game that he's going to miss and that he's going to be back for the Easter Monday clash against the Hawks at the MCG. This was his coach, Chris Scott, speaking about him today.
The biggest issue at the moment is that he just hasn't had any continuity of training. And as much as anything, he's the one kind of driving the fact that he feels like he needs a block of training to be really confident to play the way that he knows that he can. So even if you extend it back a little bit, he played Origin and was a bit restricted sort of coming off that as well.
So he has a calf niggle that's been a little bit restricted since Origin. He was asked the question at his press conference, given all of that and some of the injuries that have come out of Origin, do you regret playing Patrick Dangerfield?
Question had to be asked.
Which he said 100% not. No regrets there.
There's $1.01 that he was going to say that.
But I mean, if you are a Cats fan, are you a bit concerned about that?
Well, if the Origin's caused it, I mean, if you're a Cats fan, you're not happy about Origin, are you?
But I mean, calves seem to be an old man's
Yeah,
issue,
they are. But again, it was a very different first game hit out, wasn't it, for all these players in Origin this year? And there are still players suffering from playing and are playing. And there are players who haven't been seen since. A couple of really big ones, Sam Taylor and Matt Rowell, who have basically can shape their team's fortunes, particularly Taylor, not seen since.
All right, it's time now for my Wednesday wisdom. And today, just a simple rule. Never take the stairs. So, you know, when you're like, even if you're at Southern Cross here at Docklands and I get off the train, I catch the train, and there's the escalator where you can just stand on, you're going up, or you can take the stairs, or maybe you could take the lift. I never take the stairs, even if you want to get your 10,000 steps
There's a lot of doctors who say take the stairs now.
What about
Yeah, they do.
What about the cardio?
Nah, I'll go for a run.
Wasn't
Get some
there was it
cardio.
Craig McRae in the premiership year? Take the stairs?
Actually, yes, it was. Take
was
the
one. It was
stairs.
Craig McRae.
Don't listen to
As in
Craig
do the
McRae.
hard yards now.
No, don't do the hard yards. Never
Why?
take the stairs. And I'll tell you why. Because young Sydney Swans ruckman Will Green is now going to miss 3 months because he fell down the stairs at the MCG last Thursday night and he broke his toe. So he is out for 3 months, which is the most bizarre way to break your toe. So that's why I'm saying never take the stairs, especially if you're Will Green. It just made me think, though, about other bizarre injuries that we've seen in the football world. So I've come up with a little bit of a list. Callum Mills, obviously, wrestling on Mad Monday.
That was
you had
good.
Max King, struck by a stray golf ball in 2023. I think he missed the first round. He had concussion protocols. Jared Grant and Archie Smith both stepped on stingrays within like 12 months of each other. Yep. Steve Johnson broke his ankles jumping over the fence of the Torquay Hotel.
That's my favourite.
Yeah, trying to get back into the hotel. Jeremy Howe broke his finger playing... throwing the frisbee to the dog.
Yeah, okay. We'll go with that.
I think that's how it went. Jaden Stevenson trying to do a mountain bike trick.
Down some stairs, wasn't
Yes,
it?
down some stairs or off his deck.
Yeah, it's 3 a.m.
Broke his pelvis or his hip. Nigel Smart burnt feet after walking on coals at a motivational session in pre-season camp. Jed Buse, just stuck in the dishwasher, reached into the sink to pull out the knives, and he cut the tendon in his pinky finger. Dana Hooker, AFLW player, reached over in the kitchen to grab the bread, knocked the knife off the table, sliced a tendon in her foot. And
Josh Gibson fell over in the shower one year.
you want to bring that up,
No,
do
I
you?
don't.
And you reminded me too, Dane Rampy, something happened to him.
Yeah, he tried to hurdle a chain that was between two posts in the oval opposite the SCG there,
Yes.
and misread the jump, clipped his foot on the chain, landed heavily, and missed. Was it half a year? Or it
It was a
affected him
long
for
time.
18 months afterwards with a bad forearm wrist injury. Yeah.
Bizarre injuries. What's the most bizarre injury you've had, Riley?
I dislocated my thumb driving home.
How did you do that driving home?
Someone cut me off on Royal Parade, and I was very stupidly just driving with one thumb on the wheel, and I broke very hard, and my thumb pushed inward. And it was the most painful 10 minutes getting home from there, and then I had to go to the doctor to put it back in. It was, nearly passed out with the pain.
Okay.
I still can't bend my thumb to
Oh my
this day.
God. So never take the stairs and drive with two hands.
Yeah, drive with two hands,
Do you
that's
have any
important.
weird
I've got an
injury stories?
Achilles issue at the moment, Nat, but it's just a wear and tear thing that I've got at the
Okay,
moment.
so it's an old man issue.
You'd have some issues, wouldn't you? You would have done
No,
some.
but I did have a friend who fell down the stairs at our Year 11 formal and broke her coccyx and had to sit on a donut, like a blow-up donut, for about 2 months, which we gave her a lot of for a very, very long time. Anyway, that's it for AFL Daily. If you have a funny injury story that you want to share with us, just let us know. We'll be back again tomorrow with another edition of AFL Daily.